Hello, ladies. So, do me a favor and introduce yourself to the people, your name, your profession, country you're representing, where you live, all of that goodness.
My name is Flora. I am a costume designer. I am Nigerian. I live in London, but I have a close connection and love for the Caribbean, which actually started in Barbados. When I'm ready, I could switch up a little bit in time.
I love it. I started in them too. My first international carnival was Crop. And then before that, I was doing like all the stateside things because that's what was in my budget. But then my first big girl trip was to Barbados in 2010, and I love that place. All right, so we're gonna start off with a quick little lightning round of this or that. So basically, I'm gonna throw two things out there, and you share with me like the first answer that comes to mind. Okay. So first off, hot glue or E6000?
E6000. Is that even a question? E6000, girl.
Large headpiece or tiara?
Oh, sorry. I jumped the gun. Um, ooh, that's it depends on the backpack. It really depends on the rest of the costume. I can't give you a solid answer with that one.
So explain the rationale. So if it's a smaller backpack, you go large headpiece?
Yes. If it's a frontline Vavavoom big backpack, then smaller than a tiara.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. All right, you have to choose one. Roller skating or Comic Con?
Both. I do both. I don't have to choose. I take my skates to Comic Con.
Okay.
That like, I know you said choose one. Honestly, I can't. Both.
Okay, that speaks to the passions. I like it.
I felt the attack. God damn.
Okay, I was like, I don't know what she's gonna choose. If this was one of the other podcasts that I listened to, you would have had to take a drink.
No, happily, happily. Bring it on.
All right. Those are the only three I had for you because I was just like, ooh, what other ones can I stump her with?
Those were good though. Those were very
Thank
good.
you. I tried. I tried. Share your origin story with us. So basically, how did you learn your craft, and then like how and when did you like just get started in the whole mask making business?
So my origin story, I guess, would have been my first trip to Trinidad. And I played with Poison, so it was many, many years ago. And actually, no, I don't think it was my first trip, actually. Yeah, it wasn't my first trip to Trinidad, but it was a carnival in Trinidad, and my bra didn't fit. I was actually with Island People, which takes me way, way back. IP Mass, if you know, you know. And my carnival costume didn't fit. The bra was too big. So I ended up convincing them to give me two bras, and then I had this little red boob tube. And I took all the gems off the bra and I stitched them onto the boob tube. Now, because we were fetting and going out and coming in at the wee hours of the morning, I didn't actually do it until maybe 5 o'clock that morning of carnival. So I only actually stitched gems on the front, and the back was just plain pink. And it was the Jewel of the Nile year, and it was a beautiful costume, and that was how I made my first attempt at a costume. And I think I just liked the fact that because back then everybody's costume was exactly the same. Nothing differed between backline, and frontline. There were no exceptions. So when I got out, everybody was looking at me, giving me that side eye, like, "Oh, who do you think you is? What is that?" But no one actually said anything, and I liked the extra attention. So the next year, somebody introduced me to a Y bra. I bought one that year. The following year, I made it. But I had a habit then of re-wearing my Trinidad costumes for our costume in London for Notting Hill. And the band leader of Poison UK at the time approached me. He made a little joke to say, "Who's making my wire bras?" and they should come and do a section with his band. I said, "You're looking at her." And that was how I got my first section. So in the beginning, I've always been a creative, so I was self taught. And with the first section, I did as best as I could. I reached out to some of my peers for some help and some guidance, and I just learned every year as I went on and just kept on going. A bit of both. I felt some people were forthcoming because they could leverage some use with me, whereas I'd have to get some things from them. And they'd give me some help, but not all of the help. But I think at the same time, I'd take on some of that onus because maybe I wasn't asking the right questions, but I didn't know what the questions are. So to flip that on its head, now when people come to me with certain questions, I know what they want to ask versus what they're asking, so I answer both. And I think there could have been, and I don't blame anyone in particular. I just think because the industry was quite small and quite new to our generation back then, there wasn't the space to be open. It's different now with social media. You know, people actually voluntarily giving the tips and tricks away. It wasn't like that then. It was a dog eat dog world in a much more severe manner. So again, I don't blame anyone, but I definitely think there could have been a more united and more spaces to kind of show that kind of help.
Mm, yeah, yeah, I agree. I think people are, because of social media, like there are more designers who are kind of showing the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, it takes, if you're interested, you have to kind of look for it and make sure that you typing in the right things. But then, there's still some people that are out there like, nope, I'm not sharing. I'm not sharing. But at the same time, I'm like, well, how are we going to grow? How are we going to keep it, keep things alive? And I remember looking at you and all of those DIYs that you were posting this past summer, and I was like, yep, yep, this is the wave, and this is what should be happening,
Yeah.
especially the more and more that people keep complaining about seeing the same things and seeing the same designers. I'm like, we're not going to get anywhere if we don't teach, others. So
I think my one of the reasons I'm doing that is because it wasn't there when I started. And you're right, if you don't know what to search, if you don't know what it's called, how do you know what to search? So part of my videos is to help educate not just the next generation, not just this generation, but anybody that's interested in the art forms. And there are so many things that we do that cross or transcends different types of the art. People in cosplay learning from me, I'm learning from them, and vice, across the board in general. So
yeah, yeah, agreed, agreed. So let's do the journey. Let's walk us through the process from like ideation to production to post carnival. Like, what happens after, I guess, a band approaches you for a what is that start to finish process like as a designer?
usually a band would approach me, express an interest. We come up with a theme, talk through the pricing of what they want to charge for the costumes. Sometimes I draw, sometimes I don't. It really depends. I kind of like to just make in a lot of instances. So I would either draw something, submit it, and then we go back and forth a little bit to finalize who likes what and which way to go. And then I'd make the prototype, do the video photo shoot, and then I now tend to start production before we've even sold anything because I think it just makes the process easier. If I know the number we're going to sell, that's it. If it's 20, then we make all the accessories. So headpiece, arm piece, leg piece, neck piece, and make all of that and get it out the way so that as the costumes then start to sell, then I'll do the bras and the panties that are specific. So I usually get the underwear and the wire bras made outside of the camp. But for the prototype, I do everything. Um, so yeah, I would go and have everything made for production. Trinidad, have it shipped back here. Then between the team and myself, we gem it all, and then do distribution, which is where we give out the costumes to the people that have bought them. Then we go to Carnival, enjoy ourselves, and come back and actually reflect. And we usually have a meeting, sit down, and think about what went right, what went wrong, what we need to change for next year, how we need to adjust things to better the processes. And yeah, it's pretty much top to tail. It depends on the band because everybody has a different requirement. Some people would just want me to design something and then they go ahead and handle production. Some people want me to produce the whole thing. Some people might only want me to do the feathers or the underwear. It really depends. That's a lot of the conversation that happens in the beginning when we try to go through prices, go through budget, go through what is expected, what they can handle. But from my experience, I've mostly done production. But occasionally, I might just design and do the bare minimum. But like you said, it's a conversation that needs to be had because everybody has different requirements.
Do you get paid before or after?
Usually before and during and after. It depends on how big the budget is. If it's a very big budget, then you take a deposit, you get a little bit in the middle to carry on working, and then you get the balance finished or paid at the end. If it's not that much of a big budget, then we decide how many costumes we're going to sell and use that to create the deposit. It's paid at the beginning, and then we settle at the end once I've completed the work. I don't have to usually wait to Carnival to get paid. Once I've shipped it, run me my coin.
In terms of like themes, right? So do I know you mentioned like there's usually like a back and forth, but do some bands just have a theme and they're like, this is what it is. Can you work
Yeah,
with that?
yeah, and that's perfectly fine. When I say back and forth, it's usually back and forth on the design and what exactly I'm making and the fit of the costume, the straps, the gems, all of that good stuff. But for the most part, bands know what theme they want to run with. They know what, in many instances, what they want to call it. They just need me to execute the dream.
I think a lot of inquiring minds want to know, like, and of course, again, I understand that this varies. Folks these days are very concerned about the style of the costume, the amount of exposure, and I guess wanting to know, like, are bands specifically like, this is what we're going for. We don't really care about, we don't care about like practicality and like just Nani's exposure. Like our bands like we want more of this and less of the olden days more covered looks.
I feel like bikini mass has taken over, which I have no problem with. I love me a bikini massa versus
Okay.
traditional costumes. But I don't want to point any fingers. I don't know who started this no vagina coverage trend. So we'll just call it that. Because if I start pointing fingers, I'm going to have a lot of designers coming for me. Because male and female designers do it. And
Yes.
I'm sure some people look at my costume and say, but that's minimal. I always have coverage. So let's just pull that back. But I feel like it was started somewhere. It kind of has become the norm and what's accepted in Trinidad. So sometimes when people approach me, they'll send me pictures of what they like and what they want. And it's usually very minimal coverage. And I wouldn't say it's my ideal type of costume to make. So I will always try and add a couple centimeters on the sides of the crotch because I think it needs it. Even if my costumes can be minimal, and I've made some tiny pieces at the request of individual customers, but for the most part, I'm not a favor of I call it no sides. So there's no strap at the side of the costume. Your panty just goes up. I don't personally. I don't like it. It's not taking away from anybody's work. Y'all look great. Don't come for me, but it's not my favorite. I think it's taking away the essence of or the little bit that was left from traditional mass and making it just, and I don't want to sound disrespectful, but it's just not for me. I'm going to choose my words quite carefully, but I think it takes away from what it should be and gives it a different perceived reputation, and that is what I don't like. I'm not a fan of thongs either, but that's me personally. Of thongs on the road, I don't wear thongs. I've got nothing against girls wearing thongs, but for me, I don't ever want to be in a position I'm bent over and y'all can see my everything. And it's more likely in a thong. Again, I've made the most minimal costumes for people to wear, but that's my personal thing. And I feel like costumes are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. They look great in many instances, but a lot of me wants to just increase the size of the coverage.
Mhm. And I understand the times of the world and inflation and all of that, but I think I get so bothered because they're becoming smaller and smaller, but yet their prices are going up and up and up. And I'm just like, but what is happening? I don't have Apple here, so what am I paying for? And I've tried to rationalize, and it's like, okay, like I know because you see a lot of strings, right? And I know that making strings, and I've said this on Instagram, I hate making them because they're so time consuming. You gotta cut it up, and then you gotta sew it, and then you gotta pull it from the inside out, and then you gotta try to get that takes time.
Or you have to invest almost $1,000 to buy a cover stitch machine. Can we talk about
Exactly. I'm
that?
not doing that. And then spend 10 hours trying to figure out how to thread it. Mm-mm.
Can we talk about that? Okay, because some of us, we're suffering either side of the line because that loop turner is not fun. It's not fun.
No. Oh my goodness. So I get it. I'm like, okay, maybe they're charging more because it takes more time to make these little intricate things and to make the V's. I don't know, but I just feel like I'm not getting a bang for my buck when you're choosing, and and I know that they're choosing like great fabric, but you can't see the fabric because y'all aren't using it unless you get a monokini or a backline costume or something where you can see the print. Anyway, that's a rant. I don't
Can
even
we
know if there
move
was a question there. I'm sorry.
on? No, the question was about coverage.
Yeah, coverage and price. Like, what are we doing?
I'm not sure about price because I mean I designed for Tropical Fusions and our costumes were under the 600 mark, under the 500 mark I think as well. So we've kept it relatively low, or at least tried to. I'll be honest, we didn't make money last year, so that's going to change. I'm still not going to put it up to the £1,000 mark because I think that might be a bit much, but it's a difficult situation because I mean if you're having it mass produced, your overheads are different. I think it's more cost effective to have it mass produced, but then you're still going to pay an arm and a leg in imports and shipping. If you're making it in house and charging by the hour, we should be charging 1,500 a costume, 100%, because the hours I spent 6 months making this, 6 months doing production for a band of 60 with a team of 10. It's a lot of work. And I do think across the board that those that make it in house are definitely underpaid. But I think that if we are going to start charging the 1,000, 1,500 mark, then we shouldn't be getting five feathers. We shouldn't be getting costumes that don't look the part. And it's difficult to make it look the part because how do you tell somebody that their design and their creativity doesn't look like what it's worth when they've been the ones spending the time making it? And if everybody is putting their price up and all the costumes are looking very similar and they look like they're just string, again, how do we justify that? I'm paying for an experience. I get that. And I love the experience. But where do we go from here? I mean, I don't really do international carnivals like that anymore. I mean, Rotterdam I do because that's work as well. But I don't, I could have gone to Miami this year. I chose not to because I just couldn't justify it. I couldn't justify the overall cost. Like, I said, I'm gonna take that money and say that.
Exactly.
And then I regretted it because you know when you see your friends play, man, I see you that.
I'm sorry. I looked at those Miami pictures and I was unmoved. I'm like, nope. You still can't get me to feel something.
It wasn't the pictures of the costumes per se, because I feel you on
Just
that
the,
side. It's the
yeah, yeah,
enjoyment.
yeah.
It's the feeling
Correct.
we get when we hit that road. Doesn't matter if my costume breaks. Doesn't matter if I forget my backpack. Once I hit the road and I forget all the stress that happened to get me here, that feeling it's just you can't describe it, and that is what I missed. But I will agree with you on that. Looking at some of the content that came out of Miami, I felt like I didn't miss much, and I didn't regret it in that sense.
Yeah, agreed. The camaraderie I definitely miss and being with my people. Um, yeah. You mentioned like designing for 60 and then having a team of 10 and all of that. Like, do you feel like those numbers are like, do you feel like that size of team works for the demand?
I mean, when I say 10, we had a core team of 10. So there was definitely 10 people, two people on sewing, two people on cutting, two people on helping me with the backpack. So it was the core team of people that I would see every month. But then I had additional people that would come in once or twice over the summer, maybe three times, just to give a hand here and there. But I think making a section of 60 probably needs a team of 15 to 20 to get it done ahead of time. So, but I mean, our distribution was also a week before Carnival because I said that last week I needed to myself, which, if I'm honest, next year I want to do it 2 weeks before Carnival because that last week I ended up spending doing alterations. A lot of people give the wrong sizes. Some people can't make it to distribution. For whatever reason, one or two costumes may not be ready, and you might have to tell them, okay, can you come in a couple of days? So you need that last week to buffer. And then I need the next week for myself. I'm going to do that different this year. I'm making mine first. I said, I love my customers, I love my masqueraders, but I'm making my costume first. So come Carnival week, I'm gonna sleep because when I didn't really sleep, which meant on Carnival day I had fun. You know, your girl was sleeping on the truck. I
I
put
believe
my
it.
head back. I sat in the. That's it. Snoring, everything. They were taking pictures of me. I put it in my story because it's part of the journey. But I don't. As much as it was fun and and all that good stuff, I don't want to enjoy it like that. I don't want to experience that. I want to sleep. I want to party. I want to actually relax. So I want to do distribution 2 weeks before, which, as you know, in Carnival, that's practically unheard of. You usually have costumes running out that very week of Carnival 2 or 3 days before, and I've been there. I've had the best and the worst, so I know exactly how that feels. So I want to pull it back just a week more, and to be able to do that is one of two things: you either start much earlier, you get a bigger team, or you do a wholesale production in the Far East.
What would you say are some of the challenges that designers face, or just talking about yourself in the costume business? And like, was there ever a time that you were like, you know what, I'm done. Y'all can have this.
Girl, the big challenge, or the biggest challenge, I think, is getting production started on time and getting it right, and anticipating your demand. That would be the biggest challenge because a lot of people, from my experience and what I've seen in the conversations I've had, they don't want to start production because they don't know what they're going to sell, and they don't want to, waste money on buying stuff. So I think you almost have to go in with such a strong head and strong heart and know, right, I want 50 this year. I'm going to get 50 this year, so I'm going to prep for 50 this year. And having that in your mind, like one of my tricks is I start my accessories earlier. I'll design my section. Well, it depends on the band, but my main section with Tropical Fusion, I'll design in a way so that the headpiece, the neck piece, and arm pieces are almost identical. You might have one or two extra trims or gems, but the base is the same. So if I know we're getting 50, I know what we can sell based on the previous years. So I will make my 50 sets of arm pieces, leg pieces, head pieces. They're done from February, March. They're just waiting for gems. So but you can't get that anticipation without the experience. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think that would be the most difficult thing for me is anticipating the sales. So you know when to start and starting on time. Because it's easy to blink and you in June. And you say, where did the time go? We blinked, we were in June, our accessories were done. Every year I say I'm done. Every year. Without fail. Ask anybody on the team. There is going to be a time during the summer when, because I'm such a workaholic and I like to finish things. I work through the night as well in many instances because it's just much more peaceful. So I will start my leg pieces at 9 o'clock at night and I'll post in my story 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm done. So having that work pattern is very draining, and I find that it's not very healthy. It's not one I would encourage, but it's the way I've worked previously. I'm going to change that, but having that lack of sleep, having to continuously go, because I'll sleep for a few hours, wake up, and somebody else needs something, or somebody else has come to help, and I just need to do a handover. By the time you get up to do the handover, you're up, it's time to go to work. So I'm in pain, lack of sleep, lack of food, lack of energy. I don't get to go to the gym. I don't exercise, and that takes a huge toll on me. So every year, without fail, I will tell you, I'm not doing this next year. I go through a point that I feel like I really dislike it. I don't actually, but I feel like I dislike it. So that I think is quite common across businesses in general. So I've accepted that as part of my experience up until now. Next year, I said I promise to make a change. I don't want to go through saying I don't want to do this next year.
We talked about challenges. So what would you say is like your proudest moment in as a costume designer?
Probably this year, finishing production a week before Carnival. That's the earliest I've ever done that. And I used to be really embarrassed to say, actually making it out to the truck before it pulls off. Before it pulls off, in full costume, myself, no stress, tears of joy. That to me is, yeah, that would be probably my proudest moment. And to top that as well, or to add to that, I had a section in Rotterdam this year, and we shipped everything in advance, which I hadn't done before. I've usually flown with it because I've just always been a bit cautious, and you work up to the line. I didn't quite manage my time as well. I went to my own distribution to collect my backpack. Wild to me because I shipped everything and I didn't want to take mine on the plane. So I turned up like a customer, picked up my backpack, and went back to my apartment. And I'm looking around like, this is wild.
And then as far as, we talked about the up and comers and people who are interested in doing this for a living, like what tips or advice do you have for them? Like 3 things, 3 to 5 things, whatever comes to mind.
Don't be afraid to ask. If you see someone that is doing what you do, even if you think they're going to shut you down, ask questions. That would be the first thing. Because I've had a few new designers come in to buy feathers and buy this, and I can tell they want to ask questions, and I've had to pull the question. All right, what's up? Pick my brain. Okay, now I can. So I think break through your shyness and ask questions. My second tip would be start production early. Even if you feel like you have time, I promise you, you don't. I promise you, the time will just disappear. And you'll be looking in July and say, what happened? It's July, I've not started. So start production. Pretty much as soon as you've done your prototype, start making your accessories. Um, and budget everything and log your spending. It's really hard to get lost in everything and forget where the money comes from or where the money goes. But losing track of that will mess you up for the next year because when it comes time to, if you're doing your own private section, when it comes time to buying everything, you want to know that you don't have to take it from your wage or take it from here. It's already there. So if you budget everything and keep a track of what you're spending, it just makes everything easier further down the line.
I don't know if I asked this already, but what's your favorite part of the design process and why?
Probably the photo shoot because I don't see it. I for many many years, right, even after the photo shoot, ask people in my team. They will tell you I don't like my costume. I say it almost every year, but I'm trying to appreciate my skill, appreciate who I am and what I create, and the fact that I make magic. I can take nothing and turn it into a costume, and that is a skill. That is such a fabulous thing to be able to do. So my favorite part is the photo shoot because even if I'm in my own head, even if in that moment I don't appreciate what I've done, when I look back at the pictures from that same shoot, I'm like, oh girl, you did it again.
You're back.
I've actually made something amazing. And even if I don't, and that happened this year with my face section for Tropical Fusion, I got there and I didn't like my costume. I was very quiet, very in my own feelings. And everyone was like, what's wrong? I was like, I'm fine, I'm just tired. But my truth was, I didn't like the costume. It took somebody else that I loved her section to step up when it was my turn to shoot. Flora, this is fabulous. And I was like, wait, me? It's good? So sometimes I think maybe I do need a little bit of an ego boost from other people, and that verification that I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but just a confidence boost from a fellow designer, and that usually happens at a shoot because when the model steps into it, the photographer gets going, everybody reminds you you've actually done something very nice, very good. So that's probably my favorite part of the designing process. My favorite part of the entire carnival, being on the road. And it's not just being on the road. Oh, I hope I don't cry. It's not just being on the road, actually. It's two parts distribution, because of the elation in the ladies and gentlemen's faces when they get that costume that they've, and for this year as well, they watched me make it in my stories for the entire summer. Getting that energy and that emotion back at me, almost like being in a concert when the artist gives you that fire and you throw it back with your lyrics. So being in that space at distribution is one thing. I cry at every distribution. It's pretty accepted. I've accepted that now. But then just before we hit the stage, when I turn around and I see everybody in the costume that I have, and we have worked so hard over the summer to create, that feeling, unimaginable. That I'm welling up now because it just reminds me that no matter how I feel, no matter what I've gone through, no matter what pressures I've had to experience, I can't help it, I'm emotional about it. No matter what I've had to experience and gone through for the entire year, in that moment, it's perfect. It's a perfect moment, it's a perfect stage crossing, and everybody's happy. And not every designer gets to enjoy that because it doesn't always go right. You get sometimes it just does not happen. So being at that stage in that moment and making the stage, making it to the stage on time, that moment there will forever make me shed a tear because it shows me how far I've come, and it just reminds me that no matter what I think of myself and what I go through, whatever emotions I might cycle through my mind of what I've done and what I haven't done and how well I've done it, everybody's happy right there, and that part I love.
Oh,
I didn't mean to get emotional. It's okay.
like, do you ever get like side eyes or backlash from people who are like, "Oh, you're not, of Caribbean descent, so why are you kind of in this space?" Like, because I feel like there are people who, and I get annoyed because there are people who like want to gatekeep the culture and feel a way about, there are content creators out here. Granted, they're not doing what you do by any means, and then you have you who are actually giving back and giving to the culture. Granted, we're all cousins, you know what I mean? Like we're all related, but just wanting to get I don't even know what the question is, but just wanting to get your thoughts on that from a quote unquote like outsider, but who has appreciation for the culture.
Well, I've never felt anything. It's never been said to me. If it's been said behind my back, it's not found its way back to me. But I, as much as I'm Nigerian, yes, born in Nigeria, I've lived in England since I was six, so that's 30 odd years. I actually have always lived within walking distance of Carnival. So my introduction actually to making Carnival costumes, I actually got it wrong, was when I was 14 or 15. My mum signed me and my younger sister up to a summer camp. I didn't know then it was mass camp. Literally, she signed us to one of the local mass camps to make the costumes. My sister was so young, she wasn't allowed to use the sewing machine. So I had to go with her because I was 15 and I was able to use 15 or 16. I think it was 15. So I was able to use the machine, but she was not allowed. So I was bored. I wanted to be outside playing with my sister. I was trapped in the summer. I didn't get what mass was. I wasn't, we'd been to Carnival, yes, to spectate, but I'd never actually been in costume. So having that experience, at one point they said, okay, now it's time for you, Flora. You're going to learn how to use a sewing machine. My life changed in that moment. As soon as I did, I said, yeah, this is my new personality. This is it. This is where I'm at. And I think having had that as to a Caribbean, going into Carnival at the age of 14 is quite late. But considering I was coming in from a different culture, it didn't feel late to me. So having gone in at that age, and then that helped me make clothes in general. Every summer, I made sure I had a costume with Paddington Arts. That became part of my identity. And I think coming from there, I didn't just have a costume and take part. I then went to Barbados on a netball tour with school in 2000, and they made us leave the day before Kaduna Day because the tickets were cheaper, and we were, very young at the time. So that gave me another introduction to Carnival outside of England, but without the jump. And I went back in 2002, and that was how I started going to crop over. So I went to crop over for I think 10 years on the trot. I did Trinidad for 12 years on the trot. So yes, I may be a foreigner on one side, but I know a hell of a lot of soca music, and I was throwing money at the culture every carnival, going to the different islands, enjoying the celebration and the parade. Making the costume was by accident because I got a bra that was too big. So I feel like in my instance, I've given so much and fully immersed myself in the culture. At one point, my family were getting annoyed with me. Why am I sounding Bayesian? I'm Nigerian. Cut that crap out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went through the phase, dating Bayesian guys as well. So everything was you. I sound Belgian with everything. I didn't know how to speak English. Everything had a Belgian flair to it. I still have it to this day, but I have to focus to sound British. So I think having experienced that, I was fully immersed in the culture that it is part of who I am and it's part of my identity now. So I would never see myself as a culture vulture because you sing more soca than me and let's talk. That would be my question. So I think having gone through all of that and then being asked to be a designer, because I didn't request it, it was requested of me by the band leader of Poison, it kind of further cemented it from me. And now, on top of as much as I've learned everything I've learned, and I've not come to the end of my journey, I've still got a long way to go, but I'm now giving back to the community in my tutorials. I'm telling you guys how to make costumes. How many other designers are giving you all the tips and tricks? Not many. So for me, I think being part of the culture and being part of the community, it's a 360. You have to give and take. I've given a lot. I've taken a lot, but I'm still giving. So that's, I think, my opinion. I guess everybody's a little bit different, and I don't think it should be gate kept because if it was gate kept, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. The response I've got on social media has been pretty good, and I think I can understand people wanting to gatekeep, because there are some people that will come in and just obliterate the scene and run away with all your money and you have nothing to show for it. But at the same time, if we don't open up the doors, how is the community and how is the culture going to make money? It can't, because even Notting Hill Carnival, as it stands, the money made in that carnival is enormous. I don't know the figures offhand, but there are so many opportunities for different cultures because our carnival is multicultural. You don't have just the trucks that are Caribbean. You have all sorts of trucks from different walks of lives, and within our carnival, we have sound stations. So you'll go in here, drum and bass at a sound station. You might go at another one and have a stage, and you've got some pop artists. There's a corner for everybody. And if Carnival hadn't started, it wouldn't be that way. So I think it is. I understand why people want to gatekeep, and I understand why people want to kind of monitor who's in and out. But if you don't open the doors, then you can't flourish. That's just how it works, unfortunately.
You made an also transition into it. I wanted you to like give a promo, like right, like if you had to do like a promo for Notting Hill Carnival, like what would you say? What would be the reason for people to come and visit? Like why should they attend?
Um, does it have to be specifically for Notting Hill? Because I wouldn't necessarily. I mean,
Oh,
um,
I might edit this part out.
Carnival has its challenges. Obviously, this is not the question answer. This is me talking to you. Carnival has its challenges. Different carnivals are different. Some carnivals you'd be like, girl, don't come if you're not in costume. It's not the same. And get off the streets after dark before, you know what I mean? So, but for Notting Hill, I would say it is the second biggest, I guess, street party. Because no street party as far as I'm concerned. It's Carnival. It's the second biggest carnival celebration after South America. So I think carnivals in general are they provide a space for you to truly just be euphoric. There is nothing like it. You get to enjoy the culture, immerse yourself in it, and you get to be that princess for the day. Nothing can beat that. I love everything in the world that I experience, but nothing can take away that euphoric feeling when you put your costume on and you're a baddie. And I think the aspects of Notting Hill that I do love are the fact that there are corners for everybody to enjoy. If you want to be in the parade, you can. If you want to be on a sound station, which is something that I don't think other carnivals offer, you can. And you have different types of music. Obviously, I'm push for the Caribbean side. I'm push costume. But it is so multifaceted that it is open to everybody to experience in a different way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I need to make my way, but it's just the
Mm-hmm.
timing just sucks.
Carabana, Labor Day, not long before Miami. There's a lot going on.
It's not even that, like, because I don't participate in it. It's just work. Like my 9 to 5 interferes with that. I would hop over there any day.
Okay, okay,
Over
okay.
to New York,
Yeah.
Miami, all of that. So before we and just share with everyone where they can find you, your social media handles, and the bands that you typically connect or design for. Where can everyone follow Flora?
Wow, if you'd like to follow me, I am Gr8estflo, so it's Gr8estflo on all the platforms. Okay, maybe not all. On Instagram, Twitter, although I don't tweet that much, Threads, YouTube, up and coming, and Facebook. It's slash Gr8estflo on all platforms.
Yes.
I design typically for Tropical Fusion. That is my main band. So my main section will be there, and that's most likely who I'll be on the road with.
Awesome, thank you. And she makes great gifts, guys. Like if you ever see the gifts in Instagram and you see like you will probably find her. And I wish I could save them in Instagram. Like, you just have like the frequently used. I want them to do that, but they don't do that yet.
You can just search my name, Gr8estflo, when you go
I
to the
know
stickers.
I don't want to do that. I want it to just be there, Like I want Instagram to make that a feature, like save as gift.
Okay, I got you. Or you could, I mean, I have the Giphy keyboard, so I can use them everywhere.
Oh,
And I wanted to talk to you about that as well.
you can do that. All right.
She's like, girl, we gonna do that. You better talk to me. Tell me your secrets.
Yo, I appreciate
It's
you.
okay.
All right, I'm gonna hit
No
stop.
problem.